Hello, Glenpool. Welcome to the December edition of Conversations with the City. We are here today with Jacob Hoover. He is the construction manager for District 8 here at ODOT, construction engineer with ODOT. We're excited to have them in town. So this video series today, we wanted to talk and visit about the Highway 75 construction. We may have a chance to get into some other topics, but for those that missed the public hearing especially, we wanted to just give you an overview of what's getting ready to happen at 141st and Highway 75. So Jacob, welcome. Glad you joined with us.
Thank you for having me.
I know it's some things are changing up at District 8. We had Randall White just retired, been district engineer for a long time. Trapper is now the new guy up there. Congratulations to him and to the changes in the office. We're excited about it. But this is a project that's continuing from that time into the future. So we want to talk for a minute about 141st and Highway 75, everybody's favorite topic.
Yes, sir.
I know I've had some conversations off and on over the past several years with your office, with Randall, with the Secretary of Transportation about what do we need to do and what's some plans. So give everybody a quick overview, if you will, of what's going to happen at that intersection.
Absolutely. So this is, and the wording keeps getting thrown in there, this is the interim project.
Right. Interim
this
project.
is the first step in the big corridor,
Right.
151st, 121st. So the one permanent we can get out of this project, we're going to build a bridge on US 75 over 141st. We're going to put in some frontage roads, make sure we got access to all your businesses. And we're going to put in 2 turnarounds, northbound to southbound, southbound to northbound, to improve safety.
So what everybody likes to call right here Texas turnaround.
Texas turnaround, yes, sir.
I'm not real sure where that idea came from. I hate it as an Oklahoman that we're naming stuff after Texas. Sooner fans, we'll ignore the Texas thing there for a moment. But the scope, this is running roughly from what 136th to
about 146.
146th, right? So the frontage roads are not the entire width of this
No.
75. We want to make sure everybody understands that. This is specifically a small interim project. And when I say small, it's still pretty large at the end of the day. What is the total budget for this right now?
So I looked at the engineer's estimate, and right now we're thinking 23 to 24 million.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's a significant project, even though it's dealing with basically one intersection.
Yes.
So what I know there's still several steps on your end that are going to have to walk its way through the process before we get started. But when do you think that start time might hit, and what's the estimated timeline to get through the project to the end of it?
So right now we're shooting for summer 2024, and that is a construction start time.
Okay.
Which means the project's going to let sometime between February and May of 2024. And we are shooting for 365 days to do that project, and that is, I am like 95% sure we will incentivize that too. Okay. Which means we can do a couple different options to make sure contractor finishes at that time or ahead of schedule.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. I know it's weather and all kinds of things come into play in this, and I know we're going to end up having to move some utility lines along the way and deal with some of those types of pieces as part of this. Yep. Water lines or gas lines, I think, cross the highway over here. So a number of different things that have to be taken into account for this project.
Yeah, and I can speak on that a little bit. We actually had a utility meeting on this Tuesday, and we're going to have one 2-inch water line that's going to run under a ramp with the county that should be no problem. And then the rest are, at the moment, clear.
Good.
You know how it goes. If we find something out there, nobody wants to take accountability for it. Yeah. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah, every construction project I've ever been part of, you find something when you get into the middle of it that you got to go, wait a minute, let's make sure we get this right. So we anticipate we'll see some of that. But what other factors outside of utilities do we think still might impact this timeline?
So ODOT's going to be on board. We're going to have the forces. Design plans are going to be in. The only thing that could be a factor, and it is for every federally funded project in ODOT, are the federal funds going to be there. Right. And right now, with our 8-year work plan, we're good.
We're good to go.
But if there was a sequestration or something like that were to happen, yes, that could postpone it a little bit.
So one of the big pieces I think it's important for the public to understand is this is not being funded, first of all, with Glenpool tax dollars.
Correct.
This is not that kind of project. These are actual federal funds that get passed through for formula purposes or other pieces back to the state. And so you're using, it's not really even state tax dollars.
Barely.
For this. I mean, there's a little bit added to it, right?
Yeah, on a standard project like this, there's about 20% of the contract, and the other 80%'s federal.
So the vast majority of this is federal funding
Yes, sir.
coming back into the state of Oklahoma, which is, at the end of the day, is a great thing for Oklahomans, that we're getting our federal tax dollars back here to work on our projects instead of, projects in Kansas or Texas or Missouri that we paid out. So this is a good thing, and I'm excited that we've got that, and everybody knows that, and I think it's good to know that this is not local tax dollars that are a part of this process. So what are the other big piece that we hear, and that there was a lot of conversation for those that might not have been here at the public meeting that we had a couple weeks back on this project, but there was a lot of conversation about traffic during the construction phase. So tell us a little bit about the phasing and kind of what we're doing to help minimize traffic disruptions during this time.
Okay. I looked at it in pretty good detail earlier. So we're gonna, long story short, we're going to build those ramps on the east side first. That's where the businesses are, there on the north end. We're gonna get that out of the way so that once we go to focus on every other aspect of the project, we've got easy access for them going northbound. Right. Phase 2 is going to be the ramps on the other side, the ramps and frontage roads on the west side. And then phase 3, the big one, now that we got traffic pushed out a little bit, we're going to build that bridge right over 141st.
So as part of these frontage roads, we will still signalize at 141st, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And we're going to have, I looked at it, we're going to have 35 miles per hour through there. So keep safety, keep a good flow. We're going to maintain 2 lanes each direction, the entire project. So
good. So no
major changes, no one lane.
One lane pieces happening.
Correct.
So traffic will slow. It always slows during construction. I mean, there's just no way around it. And we're going to slow speed limits down somewhat to make sure we help with the safety of our workers and everybody else out there. But the reality is we're doing, and ODOT is doing everything you can to minimize those construction delays that we would typically see, especially having to go down to one lane with the heavy volumes that we have. We're going to minimize those.
And
to never have that, but occasionally you'll see some of that as barrels move or things happen. You will see that from time to time.
And I'll make sure that we get put in the contract. We call it a lane rental, which is basically if they ever minimize to one lane, they're allowed very little time, and it's like $15,000-$20,000 an hour for every hour they do that. So
good. I know those are in other places I've seen. That's typical. That nobody likes to go down to that one lane, especially on these heavy traffic corridors like state highways or federal highways. So talk about then, we've talked about this being really a interim project. You mentioned it. We mentioned it at the meeting. We've talked about it every chance we get. This is not a final for 75 as we work our way through this. So what does that larger plan look like? Are there some timelines already in place on when we might start to see design plans or have conversations about that publicly?
Yes, sir. Yep. So I spoke with the designers, and it is also going to be Poe & Associates on this project. And they said the first to the middle of next year, they're trying to finalize these options. And then about mid-year, we would like to take those to the public, have another meeting, and get everybody's input.
And so that project runs from 121st through 151st, or stops at 151st,
correct? Yes, sir.
Yeah. And so the goal, initial goal, was to begin to, when we had some conversations as a city with ODOT and Poe way back when some of this was starting on the interim and the broader range. And our understanding is it will be similar in nature to what we're seeing with this type of project, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah.
There's still some options they had to work through, and there's some right-of-way issues that's going to have to be dealt with, so it could change. But the goal was to do something and make some significant improvements at the mile section markers as we come down.
Correct, yeah. In an ideal world, we would probably put a bridge over every single one, but that's their job to assess, give us all their options.
Yeah, I mean,
people do not like roundabouts, and that's always an option because of safety and the fact that you're going to be going 60 miles per hour and slow down to 25. Nobody likes that. So, but it's still going to be an option because of safety. Yeah,
but and we have some unique terrain issues.
Yes.
With the creek lining running right up against the highway at a couple spots. with the tank farms, right up against the highway right away in a couple spots. So there's some uniqueness to this project that, could create some design challenges.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so that's good. So hopefully we'll be able to talk then maybe more this summer and get some better ideas for the public and where they can go. So we'll put some information out, make sure they're staying tuned to that as we get closer to the summer, because that will be important as we walk through to make sure everybody understands. And I just don't remember the 8-year plan off the top of my head. The only thing at the moment on the 8-year is the design and right-of-way and utilities, or is construction already a part of the 8-year plan as well?
I do not know that. I know right-of-way and utilities is set for 2026, 2027 area.
Last I saw,
and usually we shoot for 3 to 5 years, so it could be on there at this moment.
Not, it's probably coming within the next year or two would be my guess.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Last I haven't looked in the last few months, so I don't remember if it's been updated since then. But last time I looked, it wasn't there quite yet. It was just off the back end of it, is what we assumed.
But right-of-way utilities, you're correct, is on there for sure.
That takes a while. I mean, when we do our roadway projects, we've been working on one. It's buying right-of-way and then moving utilities is 12 to 36 months, depending on how massive the project is, how many utilities have to be moved, and how much right-of-way has to be bought.
Yeah.
So it's we know those will take a longer time to work our way through. Thankfully, this project with the interim piece, we're not moving any right-of-way, and are not having to buy any right-of-way really as part of it, significant right-of-way.
Yeah.
And so that's good.
Like those utilities you discussed earlier, some of that for this project we were able to design around to let's get this bridge in, and then for the next phase, let's really focus on pushing those right-of-way and utilities out to make sure it's safe for all projects moving forward,
Right. Do we know, has anything been decided yet on the widening process of the highway? I know there's been some talk. There was a Tulsa World article here a few months back about widening starting in Tulsa somewhere on 75. But has there been any decisions made, I guess is the best way to say this, yet on what that would look like or how far south those widening processes?
No, not yet.
Okay. And I know that it had been talked about in an article, but it didn't say, and so just we keep hearing all kinds of people or rumors on the issue, and our people ask us a lot. So just wanted to double check whether that was there. Let's switch gears for just a second, because I think that gives us a pretty good overview of what's coming on 75, timelines kicking back in this summer for construction start, best case scenarios for us, and then 365, 1 year, 365 days, we should hopefully finish construction if everything works perfectly. Let's switch gears for just a second on Highway 67 if we can, because that's the other one that we get asked a lot of questions about. We've talked a lot internally and in these video series about the corridor study that's going on. What we're being told is corridor study will finish up sometime late spring or maybe early summer.
Yeah.
There's a couple of areas that we anticipate that study calling for signalization. Maybe at Elwood and then Broadway for us, which is right there by the hospital site. If it does, let's assume for the moment that it has that piece in it moving forward. What does typical timelines look like when a city makes a request for signalization to the state? What's that process look like, and timelines on how quickly we could get an idea of whether it could move forward or not?
So right now it's in the designer's hands. He's still putting together all those alternatives, correct? And I spoke with him this morning, and he made it pretty clear that, hey, we're really close. We're like 90-95% complete with our study.
Right.
But then you get that one at 151st and 75, which he said kind of controls everything, because they can't finalize their design until the options on US 75 are finalized.
Right.
So your question, though, is specifically if we were to go in and just add signals at certain locations, how long does that take? Yeah,
so if the city were to, because typically the way we've run it, when we had, for example, at 121st, where City Hall is at, the city had to make a request and request those lights go in, and then we have to go through an agreement process with ODOT where we agree to maintain and do that stuff once they're put in. But is that a 6-month process to go through the state piece? Is it a year? I'm not real sure what that timeline looks like. Is there any way to
I guess
give the public an understanding, okay, once everything is done, is there some type of standard times that we could say, hey, it's going to be roughly, a year once we make the request?
you're saying after environmental studies, after agreements are made.
Yeah.
I mean, that would still also go on either our asset preservation plan or our 8-year work plan, so we'd still have to schedule funding for that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's what I was curious if it's how that process actually works.
And in my experience, traffic funds, if it were to be like a TAP project, I think I'm saying that correct,
Yep.
for traffic, sometimes their funds come more available quicker. Does that make sense?
It's a different pot of money.
Yes, exactly. So if that were to happen, that would obviously be an option for us to consider.
Yeah, I know those have been high priority for the public, so I wanted to make sure we had asked about that and try to get an understanding of what is involved in that process.
Yeah.
Because it will be coming, assuming the study goes the way we hope it does at the end of the day, we'll see some of that, and I think it's the city's intent to start looking at signalization, at least at those two sites.
Understood,
We've had a couple of crashes there that we want to make sure that we deal with that problem area as soon as we're able to. So,
well, it is a lot data driven too. So if we have those statistics, obviously, you get moved up in priority a little bit. Right. So that's something as a construction engineer I can voice to our DE to, hey, let's prioritize this. We have fatalities. Let's get it looked at.
Yeah, perfect. We appreciate that. So, question that we didn't discuss earlier, but I want to make sure I had a chance here, if you know. So let's walk through this real quick. Lots of things happening on 75. We've got the interim project. We've got the study underway for 121 to 151. I know we've still got another project that's been discussed at 44 and 75, the interchange, fixing that. But are there other pieces of 75 that we're looking at long-term, what the plan is for that as well?
So basically, we're looking at everything from 75 Creek Turnpike at the Polecat Creek south to the county line.
All the way through to the county line? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Great. And so that's the long-range planning design stage, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so that's great to know. It's a piece for us that is important to the city as we start to see growth now happening south of 151, knowing how to interact with developers and others that come in to say, okay, do I need to push frontage roads? Do I need to do whatever? So that's exciting for us to see that those are underway and moving forward. And appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yes, sir.
You're kind of on the fly this afternoon as we walk through this. So thank you for sharing this. I know this is a major project. I know you guys at the public hearing had a ton of questions. We had an amazing turnout that night.
Absolutely.
I don't know, I'd estimate probably 175 or so in the crowd that evening, which was, we thought we were going to have to open up some walls and add some more spaces for people. So exciting about that, and we appreciate you guys, appreciate ODOT and what they're doing to move this interim project forward. I know it's a little unusual to see interim work sometimes come out of this when you're slowly working your way down a highway corridor, and so we are thankful for you and for ODOT, what they've been doing here and working with it. So thank you guys, we appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you guys. I know it's kind of a misconception that we're going to have these town meetings, we're going to give comments, and ODOT doesn't care. Yeah. It's not the case.
That's right.
We want to hear from everybody. We want to know the concerns, and we want to continue to grow and help plan.
Absolutely. I think this is going to become an important corridor into the Tulsa market.
Absolutely.
For the next long-term process of Tulsa's growth. So we're excited about it and what that means for Tulsa, what that means for us. And again, thank you guys. Glenpool, thank you for coming and watching another Conversations with the City. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you got some good information out of this about what's going to happen with the interim project and the work that'll start hopefully this summer. We'll see you again next month.